Secret of the Indian by Lynne Reid Banks, Chapter 17, The Big Blow. Quick, give me the key! She didn't hesitate now, but thrust the key at him. Snatching the red girl at the same time from his other hand, Omri stumbled across to the chest. Bring the seed tray, hurry! He gasped as the thudding of feet on the lower stairway got louder. He could hear their voices, querulous, anxious, Mr. Johnson's the loudest, dominating their questions. No room for further doubt. Biological phenomenon. Saw with my own eyes. Wait, no time for two operations. Do it all at once. Omri opened the chest, grabbed the seed tray out of Emma's hands, and put it on the bottom next to Patrick's feet. He was aware of Emma leaning closely over him, and slammed down the lid. His hand was so unsteady. They were nearly at the door that it took 2 or 3 stabs before he thrust the key into the lock. Then he turned it. What happened next was something he could never afterward remember clearly, and yet would never, ever forget. The main memory later was of a stupendous noise, a deafening roar that filled the room to bursting. But the pressure of the sound was not what threw him and Emma right across the room and slammed them backwards against the wall. The chest, he was to remember seeing the end of his chest. It simply lifted into the air as the lid blasted open, and then it was disintegrated. It simply blew outward into fragments. One bit of it hit him in the stomach and knocked the breath out of him. At the same time, something large and heavy was hurled and tumbled across the floor and struck Emma's legs. Then Omri witnessed in a few traumatic, incredible seconds the total destruction of his own room. The skylight above his bed vanished first, though he was too stunned to see it go, the glass erupting in a puff of sparkling dust as the violent charge that had come out of the chest roared upward through the hole in the roof. But the hole wasn't large enough. Nothing was large enough to channel the black tower of pure force that detonated from bottom to top of the little room. The edges of the square hole bent outward like rubber for a split second. And then, with a tearing, wrenching, screeching sound that could be heard distinctly through the original roaring, the whole slope of the roof disappeared. At that, everything in the room that could possibly move, all the bedding, the Japanese table, the floor cushions, books, Omri's collections, the clock radio, and 100 other objects whirled in a blinding, terrifying tenth of a second out into the sky as if sucked by an inhalation from the heavens. That was it. That was all inside the room. But the noise had not stopped. It had simply gone out of the house. They could still hear it outside, a wind-to-end winds. The most ferocious, destructive blast to hit England for 200 years was beginning a career which would make news all over the world. The first several million trees it was destined to uproot was the first of several million trees it was destined to uproot was the old elm outside Omri's house that should have come down years ago and now did so with a demolishing crash right on top of Mr. Johnson's new Porsche. The wind then proceeded at high speed down Hobble Road, blowing off roofs, knocking down trees, and wrecking the happy haunts of skinheads. A maverick Texas cyclone, which the weathermen had not predicted and could never explain, on its way to cause unprecedented havoc to southern England. Omri and Emma found themselves lying on the floor, on the very edge of consciousness. Omri was clutching the thing that had hit him, something sharp that dug into his hands. Omri was clutching something too. What she was clutching was Patrick. He alone did not seem to be much fazed or hurt. As the deafening noise began to fade into the distance, he sat up, rubbed his hands over his face and head, and said, "Blimey, just in time!" The other two stared at him glassily. He stood up, shook himself, and turned and stopped. "Crumbs!" he breathed, gazing around the shell of Omri's room. He looked upward into the sky, an angry sky still full of whirling leaves and odd fragments. The broken-off joists of the roof stuck out in silhouette. It was like looking out through the wide-open mouth of a gigantic shark. "You know what?" he said slowly. "I think I must have brought the twister back with me." "Twister?" Omri's voice came out thinly, and he found his throat was choked with dust. The air was full of it. "Yeah, cyclone. We saw it coming up the street, whirling like a black funnel, throwing huge things into the air. It was just about onto us when—" His hand flew to his mouth. He turned slowly back to where Omri and Emma were lying. "Where's Boone?" he asked hollowly. Where's Ruby Lou?" "Boone." Omri had in the panic of sending Matron and the injured Indians back totally forgotten about Boone. His brain was working thickly. Boone had been here? Where? Where had he put him? Had he been on the seed tray? No, he had been in the Lego house, on his matchbox bed. Omri put him somewhere at his own request, somewhere out of sight, out of mind. Omri tried to get up. It was a struggle. Every part of him ached and protested when he moved. He put his hand to the ground and dropped the sharp thing that had hit him, the last remains of his seaman's chest. An angle of the lid with an oblong brass plate bearing the inscription, L. Bear. It had struck the floor. He thought he heard a small extra sound, but before he could register it, it was drowned by a banging on the door and terrified voices. "Omri! Emma! Patrick! Are you all right? What is it? What happened?" The three of them froze, gazing at each other. It was Emma who acted first. She scrambled stiffly to her feet and went to the door. "We're all right. Patrick's here. We're all here. The roof's blown off, but we're okay and—" "All right," yelled Omri's mother. "You can't be. Open the door." "I can't," said Emma. "The bolt's broken." Omri's eyes raced to the bolt. There was nothing wrong with it. "Brilliant," he thought admiringly. "She's brilliant. That gives us a few minutes anyhow." "Omri!" called his father in a shocked voice. "What was it?" "What was that terrible noise? The house shook like an earthquake." "I think it was some kind of freak wind, Dad," Omri managed to croak. "Did you hear the trees come down? It's gone. I can't see the top branches anymore." Mr. Johnson could be heard to give a cry of anguish. "Tree? Down? My God, my Porsche!" And they heard him rush down the stairs. "Patrick, speak to me! Speak to me!" cried Patrick's mother hysterically. "I'm here, Mum. Calm down," said Patrick shortly. He was white in the face. "Listen, Dad," said Omri quickly. "We're okay. I'll take the bolt off the door. You go and see how much damage there is. We'll be down as soon as we get the door open." "Right," said his father. "He's right. Come on, let's go down. Bloody roof's off. My conservatory must be wrecked." And he shepherded the women down the stairs, Patrick's mother still fussing shrilly. A silence fell. It was almost too much of a relief to bear. After all the terrifying uproar of the last few interminable minutes, the three of them stood still, trying to get a grip with things. And in that abrupt and welcome lull, they finally heard something that must have been going on for some time. "Help! Help! Help!" The voice, a very tiny one, seemed to come from above their heads. They craned their necks. "I don't believe it! Look up there!" shouted Omri, pointing. Impaled on one of the broken roof beams was a familiar object. Its mirror was no more. Its door hung from one hinge. But most of its remaining white paint had been battered off. But there it was, still there. What was left of it? The cupboard. And that wasn't all. Clinging precariously to the bottom rim by both hands, his spurred boots kicking out over an infinity of empty air, was Boone. And that's the end of chapter 17.